This church has been going now for over 350 years, 353 I think it is. We had a 350th anniversary. The church hasn't been here that long, not the building, but they started with a little fish cellar, and people met in the fish cellar, and then it became a house, and then about 300 years, 200 and odd years ago, they built this church, and it's been there ever since.
The congregation in this church is actually a breakaway church from the Church of England. It was founded by Selina, Countess of Huntingdon, who was unhappy at the way at the time the Church of England was very high, more like the Catholic Church, and she felt that the rituals were not right, that people should pray freely and not just read prayers out of a book. So she set up her own church and funded her own preachers, and that was how the congregation in this church started. This was in the 18th century, and Selina herself visited St. Ives, and that's how the Congregationalist Church in St. Ives began. And that's why when we celebrated the anniversary in 2012, it was the anniversary of the church, not the actual building that houses the church, because you have to remember that although when you say church you think of a building, the church is actually the people that worship together, and whichever building they choose to do so in is up to them. So it's the actual people that are the church, not the bricks and mortar.
I've been here 53 years now. Before my husband died, he was the secretary of the church, and we are quite few of us now. The other members have been here longer than I have, because Mrs. O'Shea has been here ever since she was born, and so is Mr. Lander. And Mr. Lander is now 82. Mrs. O'Shea is 60, so, well, nearly 61, so they've been here longer than I have. We used to have a lovely Sunday school when I came here first, very big Sunday school. Now the Sunday school room is the bookshop and partly the coffee shop, which we used to run, but at the moment we've got nobody running the coffee shop. When we had a Sunday school, we always had a Sunday school treat every year. And some years we would go to different places, and some years we would go with a march.
One of the best things about our Sunday school tea treats was that, apart from the free day out, we were all given a huge saffron bun, known in the town as tea treat buns. It's a special size, baked especially for tea treats, and a bottle of fizzy pop.
We haven't got a Sunday school anymore, but we have a Tuesday club which meets on Tuesday nights up at school for the under 11 children, and there's a teenager group that meets on Monday night at Janet's house. We also have an orphanage in Sierra Leone which we support. We've started an orphanage there and we raise money for that, and last year we sent over, I think it was 500 boxes of clothes and food and things to Sierra Leone for Christmas. There was a ship that came into Falmouth, and they took a whole load of clothes and food and things back for us for the people in Sierra Leone. And now we've got another load. We're looking for more stuff to send out, and we got another load going out in June. And we're building a new orphanage there, and it's called Bethesda. And we have, I think, about 14 children there at the minute.
Growing up at home, we had a little money box in the shape of a globe, and that was where we used to collect our pennies and our coppers in aid of the Sierra Leone mission, which Zion has always supported. It's not just Zion that supports it, the other Congregationalist churches do as well, and they have a quarterly magazine called The Voice, which keeps us in touch with what's happening out in Sierra Leone and how they're getting on. Sierra Leone is a country on the west coast of Africa, and it was first settled by freed slaves after the American Revolution. When slavery was abolished, there were a lot of slaves that basically had nowhere to go, and one particular group travelled back to West Africa and settled in Sierra Leone, which is why the capital city is called Freetown. There was a Congregationalist church established there in Freetown, but for a while it lost touch with the Congregationalist churches back in Britain. But one day one of their members travelled back to Huntingdon and turned up at a church and said, "I'm from Africa and I'm part of your church," and then contact was re-established, and we started supporting them. Mum mentioned that the congregation of the church here is not very large at the moment, perhaps about a dozen people. But I remember when I was coming to the church in the 60s that the pews would be full, and particularly on occasions like anniversary or Harvest Festival, the church would be full and there would be people sitting in the gallery. Harvest Festival is always a big occasion. People would come in from the countryside, from the outlying farms. We would decorate the church with fruit, sheaves of corn, and of course we always had a harvest loaf specially commissioned from the local bakery, which was a loaf baked in the shape of sheaves of wheat.
Everybody used to bring their fruit on a Saturday and we would decorate the church, and we had so many apples and oranges. We used to put them in between the little arches on the choir and at the back behind me, and have them flowers along the top and flowers all over the place. And then on the Sunday night after the service, all the ladies used to get here, and we used to have little baskets, little punnet things, and used to put fruit in, say some eggs and tomatoes and some apples and oranges, and some of the ladies would be bunching flowers. And then I would go, and some of the others would go after the church service to some of the older people and take their things down, take some fruit or flowers to them. We used to have a really full church for harvest, but now, unfortunately, the only time you see a church full is when there's somebody's local's funeral, and a lot of people, I think the last time this church was full was for Everett's funeral 19 years ago. But unfortunately, all the other churches are the same in the town, and we get the beach mission coming here in the summer, and there's a lot of youngsters who give up their holidays and pay their way to come down and go on the beach and teach the children all about Jesus. And they come to us on Sunday, and in the summer they preach here on Sundays. And years ago when they came first, they used to sleep here on Sundays. They used to cook in the kitchen, and the girls would sleep downstairs and the boys would sleep up in the pulpit and in the back. And every Sunday morning you had to come down early and get rid of the sand, because they'd come off the beach with all the sand. But they were a lovely group of youngsters, and they still come, and they've been coming now for about 40 odd years. And they've got their own house in the town now, but they still come to Zion in the summer.
When I was young, there was a large congregation and always lots of volunteers for cleaning. The ladies would clean, the men would do maintenance. But now it's just down to one or two people doing everything, and they're actually not getting any younger, so I'm not quite sure what the future holds. Already some of the chapels in St. Ives have merged. For instance, we used to have a large Wesleyan chapel, which is now a theatre, and that congregation merged with the Bedford Road chapel because they can sustain one chapel but couldn't sustain two. So I don't know whether Zion will be able to continue as an independent entity, or whether they will end up having to merge with one of the other chapels.
But the church is still here, and we still have our meetings twice a Sunday, 11:15 and 6 o'clock at night, and we still keep going. As it stopped, because Granny's getting out of words.